All right, Shalom. This is Har One by Yasha Allah of the GMS LIONZ Den Camp. I want to say Kal Halayim, La Yahweh, Ba Hashem Yahushua, Ba Hashem Harakat Kodash Ma'amah. Double honor to the elder apostles of GMS and their elders. And Shalom to Yakim and Agwatim and children that believe in sincerity and truth around the four corners of the earth. This is a prelude to a lesson I want to do dealing with 1 Maccabees chapter 1. Oh, well, actually, 1 Maccabees, right? Chapter 1. So I want to go into Daniel chapter 8, all right, as a prelude to that lesson. Now, this is Daniel chapter 8 and 1. In the third year of the reign of King Belshazzar, all right, a vision appeared unto me, even unto me, Daniel, after that which appeared unto me at the first, right? Because and so this was around 540 or 539 BC, during the time of Belshazzar, which was an Assyrian king that was that ruled after Nebuchadnezzar, and his father Nabonidus, was exiled, or he left and was doing some damn moon worship, all right, howling at the moon and shit, and he was in his stead. His stump was in his stead. That's how Belshazzar was acting as king. So this is talking about Daniel having a vision of First Maccabees, right? Now it says, verse 2. And I saw in a vision, and it came to pass, when I saw that I was at Shushan in the palace, which is in the province of Elam. And I saw in a vision, and I was by the river of Ulai. Then I lifted up mine eyes and saw, and behold, there stood before the river a ram, which had two horns. And the two horns were high, but one was higher than the other. And the higher came up last, right? This is talking about the Persians and the Medes, all right? All right, so that's basically talking about the Medo-Persian Empire, all right, which was, began with Cyrus the Great. From 540, you had Darius of the Medes that invaded Belshazzar under the commands and orders of Cyrus the Great. So Cyrus the Great was from Pars, which is the capital of Persia, and he rose up later over the Medes, man, because the Medes, the Medes, the Medes were, the king of the Medes was a stepfather, so he was voted in power by the Medes, man, the Median army, and they voted Cyrus as king, and they ousted the king at that time. So actually I want to move on. I did a lesson on all this stuff before. Now, all right, so that's what it's talking about there. It's talking about Persia coming up over the Medes, all right, and later on taking Lydia, and so on and so on. So it's called the Medo-Persian Empire. Now it says, then I lift up mine eyes and saw, and behold, there stood before the river a ram, which had two horns, and the two horns were high, but one was higher than the other, talking about Persia, and the higher came up last. All right. It says, and I saw the ram pushing westward and northward and southward, so that no beast might stand before him. Neither was there any that could deliver out of his hand. Right? So that's what the Medo-Persian Empire was doing with Cyrus the Great. They were taking all of that area of the Chaldees, or what you call it today, Babylon, Assyria. They were taking all of that area. Now, because that was a major Confederate area of certain countries. But now Cyrus was over all of that whole vast land. All right. So it says, and I saw the ram pushing westward, see, and northward and southward, so that no beast might stand before him. Neither was there any that could deliver out of his hand, but he did according to his will and became great. All right, that's what they call him, Cyrus the Great. And as I was wondering, and as I was considering, behold, an he-goat came from the west, and the west represents Greece, all right, or Macedonia, came from the west on the face of the whole earth and touched not the ground. And I mean, he was exalted. And the goat had a notable horn between his eyes, man. So this is talking about what? This is talking about Macedonians. Now, this is basically the lead up to Greece being established. All right. So through the Macedonians, Greece was really established, man. You know, like through Alexander. And then you had through the Seleucid Empire, so on and so on. They kept the whole Hellenistic beliefs going. All right. Then what else you had? Then later on you had it transitioned into the Roman Empire. All right. Make sure I ain't skipping nothing, man. All right, this is Daniel chapter 7, verse 5. And behold, another beast, a second like to a bear, and it raised up itself on one side. So he said one got up higher than the other. So that one side that it's talking about is Persia. All right. And it had 3 teeth, 3 ribs in the mouth of it. And the 3 ribs represent Lydia, Babylon, and Media. All right. Now it says between the teeth of it, and they said thus unto it, arise, devour much flesh. And that was talking about the Median army that told Cyrus the Great to be their king and to reign, to rule. And that's why I say he touched not the ground, meaning he didn't. They exalted him. All right. After this I beheld, and lo, another like a leopard. And that leopard represents Alexander the Great, or the creep. Because his whole symbolism was dealing with the leopard. He wore a leopard skin on his head. All right. Which had upon the back of it 4 wings of a fowl. And upon the back of it represents the allied countries, which were the 4 families dealing with Cassander, Lysimachus, Ptolemy, and Seleucid. But that's what this lesson is a prelude to. I want to go into that next. All right. Verse 6. After this I beheld, and lo, another like a leopard, which had upon the back of it 4 wings of a fowl. The beast had also 4 heads, and dominion was given to it. All right, this is Daniel chapter 8, verse 6. Actually, verse 5. It says, and as I was considering, behold, an he-goat, which represents Greece, came from the west on the face of the whole earth and touched not the ground. And the goat had a notable horn between his eyes. And that notable horn represents Philip's bloodline, which would be Alexander. All right, Alexander the Great. But his bloodline didn't stay in power after that. What happened was his power was spread out between 4 kings, all right, which were of the east of Syria, all right, or Asia, Eastern Asia Minor. Now, but they were all Edomites, and they still practice Hellenistic beliefs. right? Which the word Hellenist means pagan, so they were all pagans. Pagan Edomites that took over Babylon, took over Greece, or created Greece, or helped establish Greece. Took over Syria, took over Jerusalem, Egypt, whatever you name, man. Right. It says, and he came to the ram, and the ram again is the Medo-Persian Empire. And the last king that ruled the Medo-Persian Empire was Darius III. And he was known as the king that lost his throne to Alexander. All right. Now, verse 6, and he came to the ram that had two horns, which I had seen standing before the river, and ran unto him in the fury of his power. All right, so it's talking about Darius. Alexander ran to kill Darius III. And I saw him come close unto the ram, and he was moved with choler against him, and smote the ram, and brake his two horns. He destroyed the Persians and the Mede army. And there was no more power in the ram to stand before him. Right? But he cast him down to the ground and stamped upon him, and there was none that could deliver the ram out of his hand. Right? It says what? Therefore the he-goat waxed very great, and when he was strong, the great horn was broken. See, the great horn was broken, man. And for it came up four notable ones toward the four winds. So when Alexander started getting into the height of his power, that's when he died in 323 BC. And then his kingdom was spread out between four governors, if you want to call it that, of the Asia of the East. All right, so it didn't go through his bloodline. And I'm going to get into that on the next lesson, man. You know? Now it says, therefore, actually, verse 9. And out of one of them came forth a little horn, which waxed exceeding great. And that little horn represents Antiochus or Seleucid. All right, Antiochus the fourth. All right, which waxed exceeding great towards the south, and towards the east, and toward the pleasant land. So that's Antiochus. He was coming at the Jerusalem, all right, towards the Syria. All right, Seleucid was over Babylon, you know. So they started waxing great in every direction. And it says towards the pleasant land, and it waxed great, even to the host of heaven, you know, even to the Jerusalem. And it cast down some of the host and of the stars to the ground and stamped upon them. All right, that's crazy. I was looking for that scripture too, man. So it's Daniel chapter 8 and 10. That says verse 11, yea, he magnified, and the stars represent who? The children of Israel. All right. It says, yea, he magnified himself even to the prince of the host, and by him the daily sacrifice was taken away. And by who? Antiochus the fourth. So he magnified himself all the way up to the children of Israel, man, went all the way to Jerusalem. And he was so prideful that he did what his forefathers didn't do in corrupting the temple. You know, they put us under taxes, under their laws, but they never corrupted the temple. But Antiochus the fourth, he did. Right? And now, where was it at? Verse 11, yea, he magnified himself even to the prince of the host, and by him the daily sacrifice was taken away, and the place of his sanctuary was cast down. And it's talking about Jerusalem, man, the city of David. It says, you know, Solomon's temple. And then the host was given him against the daily sacrifice by reason of transgression, and it cast down the truth to the ground, and it practiced and prospered. See, prospered through what? Policy. In 175 BC, that's when Antiochus IV was established as a ruler in that area. Right? Now, it says, actually, I don't think that was his name. I think he put Antiochus on there later after he was established. All right. Now, verse 13. Then I heard one saint speaking, and another saint said unto the certain saint which spake, how long shall the vision concerning the daily sacrifice and the transgression of desolation, and how long shall it be, to give both the sanctuary and the host to be trodden underfoot? So he's saying, how long shall that process of time be? All right. And he said unto me, until 2,300 days, then shall the sanctuary be cleansed. All right. So now, the sanctuary was cleansed under Judas Maccabees. All right. When he, rededicated the temple in, 167, or 168 BC. Now, if you count 168 BC and you go backwards, so you have to do addition. So you add, actually, let me do this first. 2,300 days divided by 365. So it'd be, at an average, be about 7 years. How about that? It'd be about 7 years. So 168 plus 7 equals what? 175. So 175 was when Antiochus IV started putting all his taxes and idols up all throughout the temple, man. Taking away sacrifice and things like that from us. But then 168, that's when he tried to bring straight persecution upon us, you know. And once he came back from Egypt, and Jason took 1,000 men and rose up against Lysias, which was a puppet king of Antiochus IV. Once Jason raised up, then that's when Antiochus hurried back to Jerusalem and pillaged the land with all his army and killed our children, killed our families, burned down the temple. Well, not burn the temple, but tried to cast fire to the temple, put up his idol Zeus in the temple this time, you know. So that's when Judas Maccabees revolted against him in 167, transitioning from 168 to 167 BC. And the temple was reestablished under Judas Maccabees. All right, it was cleansed. So it says, verse 14, and he said unto me, unto 2,300 days, then shall the sanctuary be cleansed. See, cleansed under who? Judas Maccabees. And it came to pass when I, even I, Daniel, had seen the vision and sought for the meaning, then behold, there stood before me as the appearance of a man. And I heard a man's voice between the banks of Ulai, which called and said, Gabriel, Gabar Ya'Allah. So that's Yahushua speaking to Gabriel. Make this man to understand the vision. Man. So he came near where I stood, and when he came, I was afraid and fell upon my face. But he said unto me, understand, O son of man, for at the time of the end shall be the vision. Now, as he was speaking with me, I was in deep sleep on my face toward the ground. But he touched me and set me upright. And he said, behold, I will make thee know what shall be in the last end of the indignation. For at the time appointed, the end shall be. The ram, see, it's talking about the end of the hell that they were bringing on us through Antiochus, man. All right, because Esau rules for a time, man. They pillage, they come up with different imaginations, but after a while, it's gone, like it never existed. All right, because the Most High rules in the kingdom of men. He giveth it to some, and he taketh it from others. And he said, behold, I will make thee know what shall be in the last end of the indignation, meaning that persecution. For at the time appointed, the end shall be. The ram which thou sawest, having 2 horns, are the kings of Media and Persia. Right? Now, the kings of Media was, I forgot his name, man. Astawares, right? Astawares. Now you had his general, his name was you had Darius of the Medes, and Darius of the Medes was basically like a king, man, because he got up over Astawares through Cyrus the Great, right? He was ousted basically. Now, and they all praised Cyrus the Great and lifted him up, and then he became what? King of Persia and Media. Right, and under Xerxes in 480 BC, that's when it was coined as the Medo-Persian Empire. All right, verse 21. And the rough goat is the king of Grecia. See, the rough goat is the king of Grecia. And who is that? Alexander. And the great horn that is between his eyes is the first king. See, the rough goat talking about who? Philip. Now, the first king represents who? Alexander. All right. Now, I think his dad's name was Philip II of Macedonia. You know, it says now that being broken, whereas 4 stood up for it, 4 kingdoms shall stand up out of the nation, but not in his power. All right, and I'm gonna go into that, man, on the next lesson. Not in his power, man. You know, and it says, and in the latter time of their kingdom, when the transgressions are come to the full, a king of fierce countenance, Antiochus IV. Now he's gonna come out of these 4 generals of the rival families or friends of the family of Alexander, posterity of Alexander. It says, and in the latter times of their kingdom, when the transgressors are come to the full, a king of fierce countenance and understanding dark sentences shall stand up. Why? Because they were reading all through our books, man. And he was the one that went into our books and sought to paint the images of their idols into our scriptures. That's what scriptures say that as talking about him, man, starting with him. All right, so he was actually studying through our books to try to put their Hellenistic beliefs in there. All right, and his power shall be mighty, but not by his own power, right? Because he became great because of his foreparents, right? Alexander III. Yeah, that's what made him rich and powerful. And he shall destroy, really the Most High made him powerful. And he shall destroy wonderfully. That what they call him, the destroyer, the abomination of desolation, which is Antiochus IV and all their damn idols. All right. It says, and his power shall be mighty, but not by his own power, and he shall destroy wonderfully, and shall prosper and practice, and shall destroy the mighty and the holy people. So he did that in 168 BC. From 175 to 168 BC, they're putting hell on us, man. Right after Mattathias died in 169, they had Judas Maccabees take over, and the revolt was happening within those 3 years, all the way up to 167, you know. That says, verse 25, and now it says, and through his policy, all right, through policing, you know, also he shall cause craft to prosper in his hand, man. Crafty like a serpent. And he shall magnify himself in his heart, and by peace shall destroy many. You know, that's Antiochus, man. By peace destroy many. All right. Now it says, where was that? And he shall also stand up against the prince of princes, but he shall be broken without hand. And that's talking about Judah. And Judah's Maccabees and them broke their damn kingdom down. Broke down their pride. And that's how Antiochus IV died, man. It was 64 BC, 164 BC, when he died from a stomach. Shit was destroyed, man. He fell off the fucking horse and broke every limb in his fucking body. All right. And all of that happened from his, anxiety and stress from losing his power under Judas Maccabees and the Maccabean revolt of the Jews. All right. And it showed him that Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushua is the true power, and he ruleth in the kingdom of men, and he protected his heritage, the children of Israel. All right, verse 26. And the vision of the evening and the morning, which was told, is true. Wherefore shut thou up the vision, for it shall be for many days. And I, Daniel, fainted and was sick certain days. And after I rose up and did the king's business, and I was astonished at the vision, but none understood. So, all right, this is First Maccabees 1:1. It says, and it happened after that Alexander of Philip, his father was Philip II, the Macedonian, who came out of the land of Shittim, had smitten Darius, the king of the Persians and the Medes, Darius III, that he reigned in his stead, the first over Greece. All right, and made many wars, and won many strongholds, and slew the kings of the earth, and went through to the ends of the earth, and took spoils of many nations, insomuch that the earth was quiet before him, whereupon he was exalted, and his heart was lifted up. And he gathered a mighty strong host, and ruled over countries and nations and kings, who became tributaries unto him. And after these things he fell sick, and perceived that he should die. And that was around 323 BC, if I'm not mistaken. All right. Now it says, he perceived that he should die, man. All right. That's talking about Alexander. I'm not going to go. Actually, verse 6. Wherefore he called his servants, such as were honorable, and had been brought up with him from his youth, and parted his kingdom among them while he was yet alive. And that was talking about his family members, not the four. Okay. And I'm gonna go into that on the next lesson. It says, so Alexander reigned 12 years and then died, and his servants bare rule, every one in his place. And after his death, they all put crowns upon themselves. So did their sons after them many years, and evils were multiplied in the earth. And there came out of them a wicked root, Antiochus Epiphanes, man. Surnamed Epiphanes. He called himself Epiphanes later. All right, that wasn't even his name, Antiochus or Epiphanes. I think his name was Mithridates or some crazy shit like that. It's the son of Antiochus the king, Antiochus III, who had been in hostage at Rome, right? Antiochus IV was a hostage at Rome. And he reigned in the 137th year of the kingdom of the Greeks. So if you count from the time the kingdom of Greece was established, all right, all the way till then, and that's when he reigned. All right, now it says right here, 137, the 137th year, what that represents is, just because, man, I want to kind of get this real quick. It says what? The Seleucid Empire was a Hellenistic state ruled by the Seleucid dynasty, which existed from 312 BC to 63 BC. All right, so what? He reigned, what's his name? Antiochus IV. He reigned 137 years later, after the Seleucid Empire was established. All right, so what? 312, the Seleucid Empire was established. So he started ruling in 175 BC. All right, Antiochus IV. Now it says, verse 10 again. And it says, yeah. And there came out of them a wicked root, Antiochus, surnamed Epiphanes, son of Antiochus the king, who had been an hostage at Rome, and he reigned in the 137th year of the kingdom of the Greeks. So he reigned after the kingdom of the Greeks, or Seleucid Empire, was established in 612 or 312 BC. So 137 years later would be 175 BC. So that's Antiochus Epiphanes when he was established. Now it says, in those days went there out of Israel wicked men who persuaded many, saying, let us go and make a covenant with the heathen. And that's, that's when they became Hellenized in 175 BC. Part of Israel became Hellenistic. All right. And which later in 168 BC, they went up to the Seleucid kings and said, hey, why don't y'all go down there and make everybody Hellenistic? They should be worshiping the way we worship. And then that's when Seleucid or Antiochus sent in the armies, and put up the statue of Zeus in the temple and took away sacrifice, man. The law of sacrifice to Yahweh Hashem Yahushua. All right. Where was I at? Okay, verse 11. In those days went there out of Israel wicked men who persuaded many, saying, let us go and make a covenant with the heathen that are round about us. For since we departed from them, we have had much sorrow. So this device pleased them well. Then certain of the people were so forward herein that they went to the king, who gave them license to do after the ordinances of the heathen. So who is the heathen? The so-called white man, yo. All right, if you look at Antiochus Epiphanes, he's an Edomite, so-called white man. All right, so they're the heathens, man. And 2/3 of our people, if you follow after them, you're a heathen as well. See that? And now it says, whereupon they built a place of exercise, and that was under Jason. All right, under Jason, he built a place of exercise at Jerusalem according to the customs of the heathen. See that? And made themselves uncircumcised and forsook the holy covenant and joined themselves to the heathen and were sold to do mischief, right? Because I'm not sure if that was Jason. I think it happened during Jason's time, where they built the place of worship or exercise. It says, now when the kingdom was established before Antiochus, he thought to reign over Egypt, that he might have the dominion of 2 realms. Wherefore he entered into Egypt with a great multitude, with chariots and elephants and horsemen and a great navy, and made war against Ptolemy, king of Egypt, Ptolemy the first, the 4th, I think, at that time. But Ptolemy was afraid of him and fled, and many were wounded to death. Thus they got the strong cities in the land of Egypt, and he took the spoils thereof. All right, so I think I'm gonna stop there, man. But this is a prelude into the lesson I want to go into, dealing with after Alexander's death and going into the 4 generals, which the kingdom was spread out and transferred into the rival families of the East. All right. And the Hellenistic headquarters of Greece were moved to Babylon and Syria, and actually the Eastern Asia, during those times. So hope this was edifying, man. I just woke up, just jumped on this lesson, and you know, I'm going to the rest of First Maccabees in a little bit. All right, so with that, I'm gonna say Shalom. Hope this was edifying. I'm gonna say Kal Halayim La Yahweh by Hashem Yahushai by Hashem Harakakodash Ma'amah. Double honor to the elder apostles of GMS and the elders. And Shalom to Yakim and Agwatim and children that believe in sincerity and truth around the four corners of the earth. And this should show you the power of Yahweh Hashem Yahushai, man. And the facts that the scriptures are true. All right, because back then they were prophecies and they came to pass. Just like today, these prophecies are going to come to pass, and he's going to move these kingdoms out of our way. And you 2/3 sellout niggas, man, that sold out. All right, so with that, I'm going to say Shalom.